We have gathered here Michel Lambot, who's the co-founder of Play It Again Sam in Belgium, and sitting next to him is Bob Frank, who comes from a major company background. He was working for Polygram in Nashville, of all places, and president of, I'm not going to pronounce it properly.
Well, I like the way you say it.
Koch Records in the US, which is by far the largest independent in the country. Michel, do you remember the thoughts that led to the creation of Merlin? Is it because you thought that something practical needed to happen because the market itself will not self-regulate?
Actually, it happens very rapidly because of MTV. The starting point was MTV in Europe, and it's a continued discussion because no Europeans are paid on MTV, but others are not. So an American work on MTV in Europe is paid for. European work, European videos in America is not paid for. And we realized it was a huge battle. I mean, it really took us 18 months, very hard work, and we had to get everyone together. We had to go to every independent and say, stick together, because otherwise we're going to be ripped off. And with some friends, we like Jesus, we put our cross and went and spent months and months and months trying to convince everyone to get together, stick together and get a global deal. And we moved from 800,000 pounds a year to 3.5 million.
Bob, Merlin was announced a year ago. In a year, you've put together a structure in place and you're open for business. What kind of difference can you make today, now that you're open for business, for the indie community?
It really comes down to the issue of access. And what we're trying to do, it's the first time ever that there's been one organization that represents or has the ability to represent all independents around the world. And if you look at it this way, if you take a company, just look at YouTube, and I'm not saying we're doing this with YouTube, I'm just using this as an example right now. It would be unrealistic to expect their business affairs people to talk to 10,000 executives from independent record companies. Even for Koch, we're the largest independent in North America, and we have the same issues as a tiny independent that from New Zealand has. So it's something that's universal for all of the independents, and it's not us against them. It's a reality of the emerging markets that we have to be a part of, and that's really the goal of Merlin, is to provide that equal access. It's non-exclusive. Labels have the ability. We'll have the ability very shortly to opt in, and we feel that we're going to have some successes pretty quickly.
How do you see yourself as you're a facilitator, you're a negotiator, you are a collector?
I like the first two words. Facilitator and negotiator. The last thing that we want to do, that anybody ever wants to do, is to be called a litigator. And that's something that we want to stay away from whenever possible. Our goal is to have fair negotiations with multiple partners and make it a real give and take relationship. The independents did release, I think the number was 80% of overall the global releases from 2007. I think 80% of the releases were from independents. And that's just a huge piece of business. And I can only see that increasing on a percentage basis. I'm not sure year to year what the numbers are. These guys want to be in business with us, and there's so many of these emerging companies, and we have to be in a situation to take advantage of each new business model that comes up. It's changing every day.
If I use the word facilitator, it's also by facilitating YouTube to have access or to be licensed the repertoire from all your members, rather than doing one deal rather than 15,000. Is that also what Merlin is about?
Exactly. It's to give equal access to every independent. So all an independent will have to do is go to the website and opt in on a specific deal. They're not obligated. They don't have to do it. But we know once we have some success, it's going to be probably one of the only ways to get that access, especially from most independents around the world.
But to go back on to emphasize a bit more on the word facilitator, it goes both ways. For an indie, whatever size it is, it's very hard to entertain a big business affairs session that can actually work with all those contracts. It's just too expensive. So we want to facilitate it for our members, but it's also the same for the YouTube or the Yahoo of this world. If they have to deal and negotiate 10,000 contracts, it's probably outside of a potential business model, because it's just going to be too expensive. So what we want is to have one contract for 10,000 labels and one entry point for 10,000 users, 10,000 services. So it just goes both ways. It's a double facilitation.
Michel, one of the reaction from independents was to say, well, collective management and collective power is probably one of the answers. Where do you see the situation evolving in the next 3 to 5 years now that Merlin is in place? Are there any other tools that you need? Are there any other structures that you need to put in place in order to harness that collective power?
Two aspects first. It's a new experience for all of us. None of us have run collective society in the past, nor it's also a new experience because part of the problems of independent companies is they're run by people with big egos, including mine. And suddenly we have to sit around the table and say, oh, we're all friends. It's not always easy. So we all have to, it's handicaps that we have to understand. We have to learn how to deal together and bypass them. But it's simple. It's just go and say, those are our rights. We want to, our rights are equivalent collectively to a major, actually the biggest one. And we want to get paid in pro rata. That's it. And we'll deal with all the problems.
I have the feeling this year that there's far less what the French would call the soupe à la grimace, which is looking at the negative side of things. And there's a far more positive approach to what is happening in the business today. Do you share that view?
I certainly share that view. I was looking at some statistics before, just in case you asked. And
I didn't.
One of the things that I thought was a great sign was last year in the U.S., the amount of transactions, which is combined album sales, digital sales, music video sales, single sales, was up over 14%, over 15% to over 14 billion transactions from the prior year. It doesn't include ringtones, which was up well over 100%. So in fact, the percentage is even higher. And we're starting to look at things that way now. When I asked my head of marketing recently how much an album had sold, he kind of looked at me like I was like an old man. He said, Bob, it's about transactions. And he told me we had done 4 million transactions on a certain artist. That's what I use now, because it's a more telling sign of the success of an artist. And what's been interesting this Midem so far is so many independents that I've talked to, so many of my friends from over the years keep talking about what a great year they had and how they're looking forward to 2008. All very realistic. I think the advantage that we have is, and once again, it's not a bad thing, not a good thing, it's not us against them, certainly is not the case, is that our infrastructures, none of us, are built to support the need for superstar releases. So as the economy shifts and becomes more and more singles driven, most of us are positioned to really maximize it and take advantage of it and continue to grow.
Michel?
Every month I have no problem to pay the salaries of my collaborators, and thanks God, including mine. And I don't see why I should cry again and say, oh my God, the business is going down and down and down. Again, I'm living, what I like is get an artist into the studio, get a #1, get a golden records, go back home and say, oh my God, we did it. And if gold records these days are 100,000 instead of 200,000, I don't mind. The #1 and the gold records are still a great satisfaction. And this is my living. So yes, I feel we're living in a great time, and for the moment I feel as well, I completely agree, we're leaner and more flexible, so it's easier for us to react.